Hello to all Buddhist monks. Today, I am extremely pleased to meet with the monks from one of the countries that still uphold the noble traditions of primitive Buddhism. The monks carrying the noble mission draped in the golden robe. You have been and are truly preserving the profound spiritual foundation of Buddhism that the Buddha left more than 2,500 years ago, continuously inheriting the mission of preservation and enhancing spiritual awareness for humanity today and in the future. The vast majority of those with affinity often want to understand the difference between Southern Buddhism, also known as Theravada, and Northern Buddhism, also known as Mahayana. I want to tell you that whether Southern or Northern Buddhism, they are just names in the human world. Whether it's Theravada or Mahayana Buddhism, we all practice according to the truth of the Buddha, together restoring spiritual vitality to this world. As in this life, we reincarnate into the human realm in the role of venerable monks. Whether in this human life you are venerable monks or devout Buddhists, we all must rediscover for ourselves the Enlightenment wisdom, all walking together on the path of liberation that the Buddha discovered more than 2,500 years ago. All worldly affairs come and go through countless lifetimes. Hold on to the spiritual path. Do not let the Maya drag you down. Though the net of karmic law may seem sparse, no one escapes. Even if you flee to the ends of the earth, you cannot avoid the rain and sun. Goodness is never lacking in this world. The human heart should not be overwhelmed by negative words. The sincere effort should be made to learn. The act of affirming should be kept in the heart. Engaging in positive practice with unwavering determination. The path of liberation radiates brilliance before our eyes, no matter how far, how difficult the journey may be. Though everything changes, it cannot shake the heart of the practitioner. The fragrance of Umdambara flowers, the fragrance of liberation from the Lord Buddha. Do not let your heart be entangled by worldly matters. Follow the fragrance of liberation. Practice meditation. Sit quietly in the holy sound of liberation from the Buddha. The Umdambara flowers will bloom throughout life's journey, the Dharma path of the practitioner. Buddha was a prince in ancient India in the lineage of the Sakya more than 2,500 years ago, reincarnating into the human world in a noble position. The Buddha soon realized the impermanence of life and even his own status. He decided to leave his princely throne, wealth, and power to seek the path of liberation through spiritual practice to save lives, to save sentient beings from suffering, and also to save himself. After discovering the method to unlock the enlightenment wisdom within, he realized that everything in this world is inherently pure, and all sentient beings possess a Buddha nature, the inner luminous power. They just haven't found a way to remember who they truly are. So the Buddha said, "I am the Buddha, the awakened one, and you all are Buddhas to be." When reincarnating into this world, human beings are all bound by the law of karma. They are compelled to endure suffering, trapped in the cycle of samsara, whether diligent in performing virtuous deeds, offering charity or worshiping, or engaging in unwholesome actions. Ultimately, all will have to face suffering inevitably, as they lack the true Dharma to guide them on the path of liberation. In the past, the Buddha attained enlightenment, discovering the path of liberation for himself and liberation for the people in his own country and neighboring countries. Similarly, Ruma nowadays also follows suit, propagating the truth of the Buddha and advising everyone to practice vegetarianism and meditation. Today, I am deeply honored to receive the warm welcome of many monks from all over who have gathered here to share in the spiritual practice with me. I never thought that I came here to teach you anything, but rather to share with you a very small part of the understanding of the truth that I have realized through practicing the teaching of the Buddha. We are all spiritual practitioners, so there will likely be a lot of empathy when we come together to enrich ourselves, learn more about spirituality in our human lives. It's just about sharing, hoping we gain more understanding, not that I come here to be your teacher. How much experience can one gain in a lifetime as a human? Can the youthful years be fulfilled with life is spent in the pursuit of survival and karmic debt repayment? How many generations can be facilitated with such little accumulated knowledge within a cycle of human life? How many lifetimes can one receive the embrace of love and peace? All beings eventually rest in a grave. At the moment of passing away, even a thirst for truth in their subconscious arises, which is not of great significance, for they have been intoxicated by desire throughout life, and they will definitely leave this transient world with heavy karma, regret, and suffering. Well, Ruma offers humanity a piece of advice. Let's turn towards the Buddha's truth. Don't chase after ambitions. Human life is always filled with injustices, for beings keep hunting illusions, without realizing that all in this world are borrowed and impermanent. The smile of happiness appears when human's life is filled with the golden light of Dharma. Wisdom shines brightly from within. Buddha nature is immensely radiant. Life is not so miserable when the mundane mind is not used to judge. Dear humanity, never let go of the truth granted by Buddha. Buddhism is a religion with many different sects. The division of sects within Buddhism is not due to conflicts over organization or struggles for power and status within the monastic community, but rather because of differences in scriptures and doctrines. Buddha taught that to seek enlightenment and return to the realm of liberation, we need to understand the root of sentient beings. First, Buddha taught the simplest thing so that he could easily approach and educate sentient beings. After the Buddha entered nirvana in the development of Buddhism, his scriptures were increasingly disseminated, especially in the northern Buddhist tradition. Initially, Buddhism had two major traditions: the Theravada tradition, the lesser vehicle, and the Mahayana tradition, the greater vehicle. The Mahayana tradition mainly spread to the North Asian countries, hence it is referred to as the Northern tradition. The Theravada tradition primarily spread to the South Asian countries, hence it is referred to as the Southern tradition. I am sure the monks here are more knowledgeable about this matter than I am. Ruma will also like to share a small part of my understanding with you all. These two major traditions are further divided into many smaller sects. However, whether it's the Southern or Northern tradition, they are just different names. What's important is that regardless of the tradition, we must find the path to enlightenment. If we don't find this, whether Southern or Northern, we'll only drift further away from the Buddha. Sentient beings reincarnate into the human world need to find the path of enlightenment for themselves, to discover their own wisdom, to find the path of peace and happiness for their liberation, and to guide those who have affinities with them back to the Buddha. Our practice shouldn't be about distinguishing between Southern and Northern. I used to have affinity with sentient beings in countries like Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Myanmar, and Sri Lanka over countless lifetimes. Today, in this life, being present here, I feel immensely happy to share with the monks about the practice and teachings of the Buddha. Since the time of the Buddha entering Nirvana, his teachings have been passed down by his disciples to future generations. Buddhism has been a powerful force in helping humanity find enlightenment. The great enlightened masters who came after the Buddha always aspired to spread Buddha's teachings widely to help sentient beings attain a peaceful and happy life, always wishing that beings turn toward the Buddha's truth to find their way to liberation. In general, all monks tend to adhere to their own sects, and this is also beneficial as it helps the Buddhist teachings prosper in life, whether practicing the Theravada or Mahayana tradition. Using any method or speaking any language, we should all turn inward towards the boundless wisdom within ourselves. Every Buddhist monk aims to cultivate the potential wisdom of the Buddha to guide those with affinities towards the path of spiritual liberation from the cycle of birth and death. When reincarnating as a human and practicing our noble spiritual ideals, as monks, you are not here to argue with each other or to fiercely debate the differences between Theravada or Mahayana. Regardless of the sect, if you fail to find the path of enlightenment, you will still be subject to the cycle of rebirth like any other sentient being. After more than 20 years of traveling extensively, learning, and practicing the teaching of the Buddha, I find that there is no inherent conflict between the Theravada and Mahayana traditions of Buddhism. The differences lie mainly in perceptions and persistence of each individual. The teachings of the Buddha always emphasize the practice of seeking enlightenment within oneself. Over 2,500 years ago, he laid out the path of liberation for all beings on earth. Today, Buddhist monks also have to help sentient beings find this path, guiding them to escape the cycle of birth and death, to transcend the suffering of cyclic existence. Once enlightenment is found, one becomes a noble person, understanding the entirety of the universe, attaining nirvana, guiding and opening the way of those still lost in this world of samsara. The Southern and Northern schools of Buddhism differ in their concepts of existence and non-existence, also referred to as having and not having. The Southern school of Buddhism advocate the theory of existence, that all phenomena are impermanent, constantly changing, yet there is a relative existence that cannot be entirely called non-existence. Conversely, the Northern school of Buddhism advocate non-discussion or non-existence, believing that although phenomena may have an appearance of existence, they are ultimately non-existent because all phenomena are illusory and lack true essence. Regardless of the debates and attachments to any philosophical views, in essence, they all boil down to emptiness. Whether it's existence or non-existence, they hold no significance if the monastic practitioners do not realize enlightenment for themselves. If they do not find the path of liberation for which over 2,500 years ago the Buddha sacrificed his luxurious princely life to discover, he found the true Dharma, the path that leads sentient beings to liberation. This is an immensely noble achievement. I, Ruma, am always ready to guide anyone on the path to liberation for all those who yearn for it. I don't discriminate among any religions. Whoever comes to me, I always preach the teachings of liberation, helping them find enlightenment within themselves. You are all noble beings, not bound by the cycle of karma that the Maya always hold, tormenting souls, consigning them to animals or human suffering. If we find the path of enlightenment, we will rise above, and our souls will no longer be hindered by the grasp of the Maya. Life is merely temporary in this mundane world. The practitioner of enlightenment walks nobly everywhere. Illusions of life are but a dream, a transient garment covering worldly appearances. Glory, wealth, and material possessions are like bubbles on the surface of the ocean. We should dispel the illusion of fame and gain, seeking the Buddhi, peace granted by heaven. When discussing the cycle of birth and death and nirvana, the Mahayana tradition of Buddhism believes that these are not fundamentally different concepts. In one lifetime as a human, if we practice well, we can nurture nirvana within our hearts, find peace, achieve enlightenment, and discover the path to liberation as the Buddha did. When we let go of our worries and sufferings, then the Bodhi will manifest within us. So, when will a person attain nirvana completely? The answer is, only when in this lifetime you find a living enlightened master who teaches you the path of enlightenment that the Buddha discovered, who imparts the power to dissolve the karmic obstacles you have accumulated over countless lifetimes. Only then will the path to nirvana be widely open to welcome you. Theravada tradition and Buddhism advocates self-reliance and self-enlightenment, meaning that followers of Theravada Buddhism will achieve enlightenment and liberation on their own, without being able to help others attain enlightenment and liberation. This is true only when they are guided by an enlightened master who opens up their inner wisdom. There's a saying, in wood there is fire, in straw there is fire, and in stone there is also fire. But to ignite, wood and straw need the impact of sparks from two stones striking each other. Only then can wood and straw ignite, as they cannot produce fire on their own. Similarly, within all sentient beings lies the Buddha nature, the power of enlightenment and liberation. However, how can one attain liberation without the support and guidance of an enlightened master's power? The Mahayana tradition of Buddhism advocates self-enlightenment and the enlightenment of others, meaning that followers of Mahayana Buddhism not only attain enlightenment and liberation for themselves, but also work towards the enlightenment and liberation of all sentient beings. However, to achieve this, you also need to find an enlightened master in this lifetime, whose mission is to awaken the wisdom within you, to awaken the spiritual journey within you, helping you attain this enlightenment. Once you have attained enlightenment, you will find your own wisdom, just as the Buddha achieved the great enlightenment. From this perspective, many may understand that the Theravada tradition will not find the path of enlightenment. This is not true. Ruma has traveled extensively with limited understanding of myself, and I want to share the path to save humanity with you here. I am also confident that all who practice Buddhism want to find the path of enlightenment, to return to their true selves, to save their own souls, as well as the souls of those who have affinities with them. When Theravada Buddhism spread from India to countries in South India and Southeast Asia such as Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos, it is understandable that these countries were influenced to some extent by the culture of Brahmanism from India. Countries following Theravada Buddhism often have large numbers of believers, and their faith in the Buddha is stable, making Buddhism the national religion in these countries. This has helped Mahayana Buddhist countries to experience less dominance or intrusion from other religions. A Buddhist country is formed over centuries. As you may know from the scriptures, Buddhism has evolved over many centuries. Buddhist countries have preserved incredibly beautiful spiritual traditions, such as Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar. I deeply appreciate this achievement. Buddhism has brought beings of life a spiritual peace. Years ago, I visited China and Taiwan, where I found traces of Theravada Buddhism architecture and learned a great deal about this culture. Mahayana Buddhism spread to northern countries, often through routes from China, then to Vietnam, Korea. These are countries heavily influenced by Chinese religions, especially Confucianism and Taoism. Countries following Mahayana Buddhism will produce a force of highly enlightened monks, spreading the teachings of the Buddha, guiding sentient beings out of suffering, and helping them find the path of enlightenment. The beings of these countries enjoy the profound teachings of the Buddha at different levels. After many years of wondering and learning, I have concluded that the practice of enlightenment, we must seek the path of peace as the Buddha did in the past. It lies within ourselves. The division between Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism will not lead anyone to enlightenment, but will only pull them further away from the truth of the Buddha. The teachings of Buddha have said throughout eternity, who truly understands? Sentient beings wander endlessly in suffering. No one remembers. The eternal truth left by the Buddha, where are they now in this world? Looking back at worldly affairs, suffering sprawls in all directions. Could it be that Buddha's words from ancient times hold no value? Beings cycle through rebirths, obscured by karmic obstacles blurring wisdom. Silver, money, white, black, people's hearts change. Worldly entanglements twist human beings. Like a flower wishing to preserve its fragrance for 1,000 years. But for 1,000 years, flowers bloom, and for 1,000 years, flowers wither. Those flowers just beginning to bloom, their leaves on branches quickly fade. As those flowers start to wither, new buds on branches emerge. Lush green leaves grow old, then young shoots emerge again. While those flowers still bloom on branches, the leaves are nowhere to be seen. Some branches only bear leaves, yet no flowers. The law of the three realms dictates that all things are never in sync. Tomorrow, could it be that truth will also wither like blooming flowers? Like the trees in this world, where leaves are seen but flowers are not. When flowers bloom brightly with myriad colors and fragrances, leaves are nowhere to be seen. They have fallen because the three realms time flows both forwards and backwards. Everyone wants to find the path to enlightenment for themselves. To help humanity understand the supreme teachings that the Buddha laid out over 2,500 years ago, he embarked on the journey of enlightenment to help himself and all beings of that time attain a life of peace and happiness. He understood the truth and the message of the universe, bringing the practice of liberation to all beings on earth. His teachings have been passed down to this day. Through the lens of human perceptions, there are sometimes differences in the interpretations of his truth. This is also the reason why people argue, divide into sects, and find themselves entangled in difficulties and sufferings. The Southern and Northern Buddhist traditions, over the course of history, have autonomously developed various sects. Within the Southern tradition, there are sects like the Sattasiddhi and Vinaya schools, while the Northern tradition encompasses schools such as Dharma Laksana, Tripitaka, Avatamsaka, THIliwonte, and Esoteric, also known as mantra schools. Esoteric schools were established by an Indian monk who realized the truth of the Buddha's teachings. Buddha's teachings were intended to help us realize enlightenment within ourselves. Over time, as these teachings were passed down through generations, humans have distorted them, creating numerous different sects, causing future generations to be confused and uncertain about what is correct to follow. For over 20 centuries, the path to enlightenment, as taught by the Buddha, has been passed down to this day. The spiritual life of a monk aims at achieving enlightenment, discovering the wisdom that the Buddha attained, the compassion, peace, and happiness through the profound enlightenment of the Buddha have guided and educated humanity, leading them to liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Regardless of how life unfolds, whether as a Buddhist disciple or a monk, we should understand that everything we perceive in this life is like a mirage. It may have enough sparkle to captivate us, but with just a gentle touch, it shatters and vanishes. It's all just an illusion. Someone may be admired and revered by millions, but when they reach the end of their life's journey, they are powerless, knowing not what to do but weep for their loss. The world is inherently a dazzling illusion. It's all formed by human desires. Buddha said, one must seek the path of enlightenment and discover wisdom on their own. The happiness or suffering in one's lifetime is the result of the karma they have accumulated over countless lifetimes. The main problem is that humans in the world often harbor defilement and negativities. As monks or Buddhist disciples, our minds must always be pure, always affirming, always directed towards the Buddha, seeking peace. I believe that all monks aspire to find the path to enlightenment. Perhaps you have become weary of the worldly strife, of love and attachment, of sorrow and separation, shedding tears due to the hardness of existence, and thus resolve to renounce it all, abandoning the worries of the world, relinquishing wealth and fame, to embrace the life of a monk. Monks always remind themselves that this life is but shadows in the water, just transient illusions. The journey to find the path to enlightenment and liberation for the soul of a monk is essentially a journey to rediscover the sublime love within themselves. No matter what they do, a monk should always turn towards profound doctrine, towards supreme truth of the Buddha. Many monks ask me, how should a monk live to be right? The answer is, you should live a life free from anger, resentment, attachment, rediscovering the path to enlightenment with a life full of happiness and peace. Always smile in the face of challenges and obstacles. Live harmoniously with those around you. Life in the world is always turbulent, but our hearts remain calm, never shaken. Live to love, but without turmoil in your heart. Live with material things, but don't be entangled by them. Thus, your mind will remain unchanged amidst the ever-changing flow of life. To live virtuously, embracing a beautiful way. Compassion is the root for one's peace. Dear beings, please engrave this. Compassion is the source, the root of heaven. Compassion is the peaceful world, warmth, happiness. Compassion is the path leading us to the truth of liberation. Compassion brings peace to the heart, a life of tranquility. Compassion is the life force of all beings. Please uphold the word compassion in every path of human life. Humans keep cycling endlessly, lives floating and sinking, sorrow and joy, love and hate, prosperity and poverty, happiness and suffering, morning and evening. They constantly change. Human life is inherently impermanent. The compassionate love of the Buddha is as vast as the sea. He teaches humanity to cultivate compassion. Do not let your heart be burdened by the loneliness of life. If everyone knew how to seek peaceful living, the world would be at peace. The Buddha instructed his disciples, do not worry about worldly affairs. When you die, you leave with empty hands. All worldly gains are mere fleeting bubbles. Everything in life is an illusion. Therefore, why bother with distinction of wealth and poverty, or dividing into north and south traditions? Life is full of hardships, chasing after wealth, fame, and material desires, only to cultivate more suffering in the mind. When hair turns gray and life comes to an end, what more can one hope for? Ultimately, everyone must return to the cycle of birth and death, and their souls may not find peace to return to the root of nirvana. Life's 100 years in the human realm are extremely tragic. Is that what is true monks aspire to? Most of you present here are monks with whom Ruma has had spiritual connections across countless lifetimes. How would you feel knowing that you have tasted the bitterness of life from many past existences? At that moment, you would understand the salty, bitter tears of sentient beings, comprehend their suffering, their poverty. Ruma would like to share with you the journey that humans must undergo to repay their karmic debts in life. The law of birth and death will govern humans forever if they do not find the path to enlightenment and liberation in one lifetime. Just like a green leaf on a tree, one day it will turn yellow and fall. High positions in life, power, wealth, and fame all conceal behind them a veil of suffering. Humans are always entangled in the dichotomy of wealth and poverty, joy and sorrow in this difficult life. A lifetime filled with suffering, a realm of life amidst karmic storms. Reincarnation then must repay endless karma, all because life is obscured by ignorance. No one knows the path to wisdom, cannot see love and compassion from the universe, cannot realize the Buddha nature within, cannot find the compassionate heart of the Buddha. The Buddha's teachings remain incomprehensible throughout the ages. Due to desire, beings endlessly wander in samsara. The Buddha has taught, yet no one listens. Because of wealth, they dive into misery. Death leaves us with only empty hands. Empty-handed again when returning to the cycle of rebirth, bearing the suffering of human life for a lifetime. After enduring suffering for countless lifetimes, do beings attain enlightenment? I, Ruma, desire to share with you the journey towards the origin of liberation, to uphold the monk's ideals, guiding sentient beings to comprehend the Buddha's teachings, to embrace his truth and compassionate love, aiding them in breaking free from the prison of mental anguish, leading a life of freedom, peace, and liberation that the Buddha discovered over 2,500 years ago. The truth of the Buddha is eternal. If we keep dividing it, we'll remain stuck there for 100 years still in the same dilemma, trapped in the cycle of suffering and reincarnation. How many have truly found the path to liberation? Have you ever asked yourself, Despite following the supreme doctrine, adhering to the teachings of the Buddha passed down from one life to another, why do sentient beings continue to cycle endlessly in hardship and suffering? Centuries pass from one life to the next, yet they remain the same. Therefore, to break free from this, you must find enlightenment as the Buddha did. The truth of the Buddha is always hidden within all sentient beings. If the Buddha found it, surely we can too. As monks like you are now, diligently cultivate spiritual practice every day, every hour, to find the path to enlightenment, to continue the journey in search of liberation. The shore of enlightenment is not far if we exert ourselves, fully dedicate ourselves to spiritual practice in this lifetime. If we don't turn towards mundane life, we will never be entangled in transient material things, never be involved in the competition between Southern Buddhism and Northern Buddhism. Let's aim for the path of enlightenment in this lifetime. Regardless of who we are, whether monks or lay people, we are all human beings born from parents. Our meeting each other is a result of our karma from many lifetimes. Life is like flowing water. Fame and gain are like fleeting shadows. Nothing lasts forever. But in meeting each other, let us rejoice, share with each other the smile of peace, so that our souls may be refreshed. How can we please everyone? How can we bring enlightenment to all beings? Every day, monks should steer their lives with the journey that the Buddha has entrusted to them. Amidst the vast sea of life's hardship, monks need to find the path to enlightenment to guide all beings on their journey of enlightenment. We are monks seeking the wondrous truth of the Buddha, serene and content with a heart of tranquility and a life of liberation. In the human world, there is always competition for wealth, beauty, and fame. So people are always caught in the cycle of victory and defeat, suffering and hardship. In the end, what they gather is a life of suffering and the endless cycle of reincarnation. Such is the human life. Don't let your life as a monk be distorted by worldly concerns. Once you wear the noble robe of Sangha, following the path of enlightenment laid out by the Buddha, hold firm to your ideals of spiritual practice, spreading the truth of the Buddha to all beings so they may attain a life of peace and liberation. Within your heart lies the journey of love. The dust of worldly affairs can never cling to it, for you have let go of it all, living quietly in the life of spiritual practice immersed in the deep love of the Buddha. Every memory stored in your heart is the embodiment of the Enlightened One and His loving truth. We see life as light as a feather, as illusory. Awaken the noble soul of all beings with the love and compassion of a monk. You are the monks who have followed the path to enlightenment of the Buddha for centuries. Clutching power is the illusion of wealth. Those staying, those passing away, not knowing when to return. Those staying, anxiously waiting in obscurity. Those leaving the human realm where their souls remain wandering. Humanity in the chaos of earthly life gathers together and comes apart. Once gathering, they will disperse. Once breaking up, they will come together again. Humans constantly reincarnate with endless suffering in the worldly realm. They would not enjoy heavenly blessings in every human life. In the transient realm, earthly scenes are filled with suffering. Human life ends. Their souls suffer again. Human life is the temporary realm. Does anyone know? Union accompanies dispersal. Joy is rare, mostly suffering. Human smile mixed with bitter tears. Happiness is fragile, so stinging human life is. Just today, seeing one with a radiant spirit. Tomorrow, bitterness and sorrow comes rushing in. Like those plum blossoms, vibrant when the weather is fair. Under the scorching summer sun, their pink hue fades. Spring and summer warmth pass, autumn and winter return cold. The boat of enlightenment has docked, who knows? Today, Ruma is here to share with you a part of the monk's spiritual life that I have learned. Thank you for your warm welcome. Goodbye for now.